Welcome back. Today, we explore cannabis, its history, how it works in the body, and its impact on safety-sensitive work. Let's get into it. Cannabis is among the oldest plants cultivated by humans. Evidence shows communities across Central and East Asia were growing it for fiber, food, and medicinal use several thousand years BCE. From there, the plant spread along ancient trade routes into the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. In colonial America, hemp cultivation was actively encouraged, specifically to produce fiber for the rope and sail canvas needed for maritime trade. By the 19th century, cannabis extracts were a staple in American pharmacies. As these medicine bottles show, they were sold over the counter for a wide range of ailments, with no federal regulation of any kind. For most of human history, cannabis was treated as a standard agricultural and medicinal commodity. The legal friction we see today is a relatively recent development in the context of the plant's long relationship with human commerce. Government restriction began in the early 20th century. Driven by a mix of social and political factors, individual states started passing laws to criminalize cannabis in the 1910s and 1920s. The federal government followed in 1937 with the Marijuana Tax Act. This law did not ban the plant outright, but imposed registration and tax requirements so strict that legal trade became impossible, achieving prohibition through taxation. This is Harry Anslinger, the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. He led a public campaign to support that law, testifying that marijuana use led directly to insanity, criminality, and death. That campaign was reinforced by the 1936 film Tell Your Children, later known as Reefer Madness. It depicted high school students trying the plant once and instantly spiraling into hit-and-run accidents, attempted assault, and suicide. When the Supreme Court struck down the Marijuana Tax Act in 1969, Congress responded by passing the Controlled Substances Act of 1970. Cannabis was placed in Schedule I, the most restrictive category, defined by a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. In the 5 decades since that law passed, scientific research has expanded, and a majority of states have legalized the plant for various uses. Despite those changes, the federal Schedule I classification remains exactly where it was placed in 1970. States began departing from federal policy in 1996 when California legalized medical use. In 2012, Colorado and Washington moved further by legalizing recreational adult use, a trend that has since been adopted by most states in the country. Ohio provides a useful example of how quickly state-level rules can shift for a commercial driver. Ohio voters legalized recreational marijuana in late 2023, and the state moved from approval to retail sales in less than a year. However, by March 2026, new state legislation tightened those rules, lowering the legal potency cap for extracts from 90% to 70% and banning the transport of cannabis purchased in other states. Ohio also enforces strict OVI limits, operating a vehicle impaired, which use blood and urine tests during traffic stops to determine if a driver has exceeded the state's legal threshold for THC. This creates a direct conflict for CDL holders. A driver in Ohio can follow every state regulation, buying from a licensed dispensary, observing the potency limits, and driving sober, yet still face a career-ending federal violation on a random DOT test. This sign represents a legal boundary created by the 2014 Farm Bill. It was the first federal law to distinguish hemp from marijuana, defining industrial hemp as cannabis containing no more than 0.3% delta-9 THC. The 2018 Farm Bill went further, removing hemp and hemp-derived CBD from the Controlled Substances Act. This led to a massive retail market for CBD products in stores and online, marketed for everything from sleep to pain relief. While the agricultural laws changed, the FDA did not. It remains illegal under FDA rules to add CBD to food or sell it as a dietary supplement without specific approval, creating a confusing legal gray area for retail products. Many manufacturers also exploited the 2018 law's focus on delta-9 THC. By using other psychoactive compounds, they created intoxicating hemp products that were technically compliant while still producing significant mind-altering effects. Congress moved to close this loophole in late 2025. Starting in November 2026, the legal standard will shift to total THC, measuring all compounds capable of producing psychoactive effects rather than just delta-9. For a CDL holder, relying on a CBD or Farm Bill compliant label means trusting your career to a market that is poorly regulated and chemically inconsistent. Drivers often ask why there isn't a legal limit for cannabis similar to blood alcohol concentration. The answer is the science does not support a direct link between the amount of THC in the system and the level of active impairment. THC is fat-soluble. As this diagram shows, the molecules bypass the body's water-based elimination systems and lock directly into fat cells. These fat cells then slowly release inactive metabolites back into the bloodstream over an extended period. This process can continue for several weeks after the person last used the substance. A DOT drug test looks for these specific inactive metabolites. The test is designed for detection, not to measure if you are currently impaired. This creates a detection window far longer than other substances on the testing panel. While most drugs clear the system in days, cannabis metabolites can remain detectable in urine for weeks, particularly for regular users. There are several other misconceptions to address. Edibles often lead to higher overall exposure than expected, and many CBD products contain more THC than the label claims. However, passive exposure to secondhand smoke is very unlikely to trigger a positive result at the cutoff levels the labs use. Because of how metabolites are stored, using cannabis on a Saturday can result in a positive test on a Tuesday 2 weeks later. The chemical evidence of use simply lasts much longer than the impairing effects. DOT regulations operate strictly under federal law. For safety-sensitive workers, state-level legality and local policy have no impact on testing requirements. A state medical marijuana card provides no protection. Under federal rules, there is no legitimate medical explanation for THC metabolites in a DOT specimen. Once a laboratory confirms a positive result, the medical review officer is required to verify it as a violation, to excuse the result based on state law or the use of over-the-counter hemp products. A verified positive result requires your employer to immediately remove you from all safety-sensitive duties. You are prohibited from driving a commercial vehicle from that moment forward. This violation is permanently recorded in the Federal Clearinghouse. To regain your eligibility, you must complete the return to duty process, which involves an evaluation by a substance abuse professional and a series of observed follow-up tests. The only way to guarantee a negative result is to avoid all cannabis, any hemp-derived THC, and unverified CBD products. For a CDL holder, the federal requirement for a drug-free system is absolute. In this video, we covered the history, science, and compliance rules of cannabis. In our next lesson, we will dive into cocaine. Take what you learned here into the next video. We will see you there.